Good morning, friend. The first light brushes your kitchen table, the kettle begins its soft song, and your home monitor waits beside a small notepad like a quiet promise. I'm glad you're here. At EverWell USA, our mission is steady and simple: better health and deeper dignity in the years that matter most. We keep that promise with calm stories you can feel and small actions you can try today. If this gentle company helps you breathe easier, please like, subscribe, and share so a neighbor can find their way here too. You are not alone. We're right here with you, one quiet breath at a time. And this morning, we'll ask your blood pressure numbers to tell the truth. What if I told you many high readings at home aren't your heart talking at all? They're small habits talking over it. What if 3 ordinary things measuring before you've rested, crossing your legs, and chatting while the cuff tightens could nudge the numbers higher than you really are? That sounds unfair, and it is, but it's also hopeful because those habits live in your hands and you can change them today. Before we begin, one gentle note to keep you safe. This video is educational. We don't diagnose or prescribe. Your decisions about medicines and targets belong with your clinician who knows your story. Here, we practice a kinder setup so your readings match the life you're actually living. Picture an ordinary morning. Steam lifts from your cup. A grandchild's drawing tilts under a magnet on the fridge. You pull out the chair you trust and let your back settle. This is where accuracy begins, not at the moment you press the button, but in the 5 quiet minutes before it. Those minutes are like letting batter rest before the oven. The rise is smoother when you give it time. When you sit and do nothing on purpose, tiny helper muscles stop bracing, your breathing finds its pace, and the number you capture belongs to your steady self, not to the bustle of getting there. You don't have to stare at the clock. You can look at the window, count a handful of slow breaths, or just let the room be still while the kettle cools. 5 minutes sounds long until you fill it with calm. There's another gentle truth this chair can teach. Your feet tell the story to your numbers. When ankles cross, or one knee hooks over the other, your body tightens in ways you don't feel, and the monitor hears that tension. Place both soles on the floor as if you're greeting the ground, and let your knees and toes point forward without fuss. You haven't done anything spectacular. You've simply taken the twist out of the hose so the water flows true. It's the kind of small correction that never earns applause and yet changes the whole page of your notebook over a week. Then there is the habit most of us learned from kindness itself, talking to fill the silence. You answer a question, you call to the other room, you hum along with the radio while the cuff squeezes. The body hears your voice as effort. Your chest helps your words, your shoulders pitch in, your pulse quickens to keep you company, and the number rises a little to follow. Silence feels strange for a moment, but quiet during the squeeze is a gift to your reading. Let the room speak for you. The refrigerator hum can be your lullaby, the page can wait, the person you love can hear the story once the cuff lets go. Let an everyday scene make it real. After breakfast, your daughter calls to see if you need anything from the store. You smile at her voice and tell her you'll ring back in 10 minutes. You sit in your chair and let the 5 minutes belong to nothing. Feet flat, shoulders easy. The cuff sits on bare skin, the tube relaxed, your forearm resting at heart level on the table. When it's time, you measure without talking. The squeeze is firm and brief, the way a nurse steadies your elbow. The numbers appear, and for once they don't feel like a verdict. They feel like a photograph taken in good light. You jot them down and call your daughter back. The conversation is warmer because worry isn't in the room. You might remember mornings when you hurried to measure between chores, legs hooked out of habit, chatting with a friend on speaker, then carried a single jumpy number like a stone in your pocket all day. You were doing your best. No one told most of us that stillness matters, that feet matter, that quiet matters. Now you know, and knowing changes the feel of the whole house. This isn't about perfection. It's about giving your heart a fair microphone. A small word of safety stands beside all this, like a neighbor who cares. If you ever feel crushing chest pain, sudden hard breath, new weakness on one side, or words that won't come, this is not the moment for a cuff. This is the moment to seek help. Most days will not ask for that. Most days will ask for 5 minutes of rest, feet on the floor, and silence during the squeeze so your monitor hears you clearly. Before we close this first part, leave one tiny promise where your eyes will meet it. Place your monitor on the table with a note that says, rest 5, feet flat, quiet while it squeezes. On your very next reading, perhaps right after this video, sit for 5 calm minutes without crossing your legs, keep both soles planted like friendly anchors, and stay quiet while the cuff does its work. Write the number down and notice how different it feels to hold a reading that belongs to the real you. Tomorrow, we'll build on this calm with the same kindness you gave yourself today. The afternoon settles like a calm hand on your shoulder. The house has that friendly hush it gets after lunch when the dishes are done and the sun leans across the floor. Your monitor waits where you left it, cord easy, cuff open like a small book. This is the hour when little changes make a big difference. And today, we turn 3 tiny habits into a doorway for truth. You start by doing something that looks like nothing. You sit. Not halfway, not perching on the edge, but all the way back until the chair remembers your back and your back remembers the chair. Feet meet the floor the way old friends meet at the diner flat. Simple, no need to prove anything. Your knees and toes point forward without fuss. You rest your forearm at the level of your heart, palm loose, upper arm close to your side, and you let the next 5 minutes belong to quiet. It is the kind of quiet people mistake for laziness until they feel what it does. The small helpers that brace you through a busy morning let go. The breath finds its own pace. The thoughts that ran around like excited dogs lie down. You don't stare at a clock. You glance at the light on the table or listen to the slow tick from the hallway and let time move the way honey moves off a spoon. A neighbor's text pings and you smile, but leave it alone. You are practicing the gentlest discipline, Don't rush your own heart. The first mistake we all make is asking the body to perform while it is still arriving. 5 quiet minutes turn arrival into a skill. When you picture what's happening under your ribs, think of a road crew opening side streets before a parade. When those little streets open, the main road flows without a jam. That flow shows up in the number, and the number finally sounds like you. Another habit waits at the edge of the rug, and it has lived in most of us since we learned to sit in small chairs. Crossing a leg, hooking an ankle over the other knee, tucking one foot behind a chair leg because it feels proper, it looks polite, it is sneaky. Crossing twists the hose just enough that pressure rises for reasons that have nothing to do with your day or your medicine. You uncross because you want the truth, not because you are misbehaving. Both soles on the floor becomes a little promise you can keep, even when the room is noisy. You will feel silly the first few times you notice your ankles trying to sneak back into old shapes. You will straighten them with a kindness that makes your shoulders drop. The third habit is the hardest for kind people. You don't talk while the cuff squeezes. You do not apologize to the person in the next room. You do not answer the phone. You do not explain to the monitor what you hope to see. Silence is not cold, it is cooperation. When you speak, your chest helps your words, your shoulders pitch in, your body hears it as a task, and the number climbs to keep up. When you let the squeeze be the only voice in the room, the number is hearing you, not your effort to be friendly. Let an ordinary scene carry this home. Your granddaughter calls to tell you about a school project. You tell her you'll call back in 10 minutes because you're baking the numbers. She laughs at the phrase, and you both like it enough to keep it. You set the phone face down, sit all the way back until the chair greets your spine, place both feet the way they belong, and do nothing that looks heroic for 5 slow minutes. When you press the button, you let the cuff have the room. The squeeze is firm and brief. You don't speak to it. You don't bargain with it. You don't sigh at it. The reading arrives. You wait your minute and take the second because you've learned how often the truth lives there. You write both down and then call your granddaughter back with a voice that sounds like you, not like worry. A small story from last month floats in. You remember measuring while chatting with a friend about dinner, one leg wrapped over the other because it was comfortable, shoulders forward because you were trying to hear the radio. The number that popped up felt like a stranger. It followed you all afternoon. Today, you let that memory rest. You were doing your best with what you knew. Now you know that stillness is part of the measurement, that feet on the floor is part of the honesty, that quiet during the squeeze is part of the kindness. None of this turns you into a machine. It lets the machine hear a real person. You might worry you'll forget when life gets loud, so you make the room work for you. You slide a small cushion behind your back so the chair invites you to lean. You tuck a low footstool under the table so souls can find a friend if the floor sits far away. You tape a tiny note on the monitor's base with 3 words that read like a lullaby: rest, feet, quiet. A grandchild could have written it. That is its power. There is space for tenderness here. Some days the 5 minutes will feel long. Some days you will catch your ankles crossing themselves as if they had their own plan. Some days you will forget and say hello to the person who walks in just as the cuff inflates. You are allowed to begin again the very next time. This routine forgives you faster than you forgive yourself. It only asks to be tried more often than it is skipped. If you like a picture, keep this one. You are making a photograph in soft light instead of a snapshot with the flash too close. Soft light shows faces kindly. Soft light is patient. Soft light lives in 5 quiet minutes, feet grounded, and a room that doesn't ask your voice to carry while the cuff does its work. When you bring a week of those photographs to your clinician, you are not hoping for mercy. You are offering clarity. Keep wisdom at the edge of the table because care and courage travel together. If a heavy, crushing chest pain arrives, if breath turns suddenly hard, if new weakness or strange speech shows up without warning, you do not sit and perfect your posture. You ask for help. Most afternoons won't ask for that. Most afternoons will just ask you to let the chair hold you, to let the floor hold you, and to let silence hold the moment while the cuff listens. Before this part ends, leave one small action your hands can finish right now. Set a gentle timer for 5 minutes, sit all the way back in your chair with both soles easy on the floor, rest your forearm at heart level, and practice one silent measurement from beginning to end. When you're done, write one single line. Rested, feet flat, quiet, next to the numbers. That little sentence will remind tomorrow's you what truth feels like. Early evening slips in like a cardigan over your shoulders, and the house decides to speak in a softer voice. You set a glass of water on the table, open the cuff like a familiar book, and reach for your chair the way you reach for a friend's arm on a curb. This is the hour when old habits try to sneak back. The phone is nearby, the evening news murmurs from the other room, and your ankles, all on their own, start to braid together because they've done it for years. You smile at the mischief and choose a kinder story. You sit all the way back until the chair remembers your back, and your back remembers the chair. Your forearm settles at the level of your heart, palm relaxed, upper arm close to your side, as if you were cradling a sleepy bird. You place both soles on the floor and notice how the ground answers. That answer is steadier than crossed ankles ever gave you. It's not a soldier's stance, it's a handshake. You let your knees point forward without fuss and feel the quiet spread upward. Then you do the most radical thing a busy person can do in a small house. Nothing. 5 plain minutes. No arranging drawers, no skimming headlines, no explaining to anyone what you're doing. Just letting your body arrive so the number you catch belongs to your steady self, not to the scramble that got you to the chair. A grandson's message lights the phone with a joke he would love to tell you right now. You let the light fade and promise yourself you'll laugh with him in 6 minutes. Silence feels strange at first, like a theater before the curtains part, and then it begins to feel like respect. When the cuff squeezes, you keep that respect. You don't talk to the room or to the machine or to yourself. You let the moment be about listening. The number appears, and instead of jumping to judge, you notice how different you feel holding a reading that didn't have to fight for attention. It is not lower every time, it is truer every time. A life anchor wanders in and sits beside your glass of water. Tomorrow morning, your neighbor will stop by with a bag of oranges. She will ask about measuring at home because her numbers bounce like a ball and make her uneasy. You will tell her a small story, not a lecture. You will say, you used to take your reading between chores, one leg tossed over the other because it felt comfortable, chatting with a friend because the silence felt awkward. The numbers carried all that noise and followed you through the day like a worry you hadn't invited. Then you tried a different shape. 5 quiet minutes in the chair, both soles meeting the floor like old friends, and no talking while the cuff did its work. You will not promise her a perfect value. You will promise her a fairer one, and you will show her, right there at the table, how to feel the difference in her own body before she ever looks at the screen. You practice what you plan to share. You let your ankles cross for a second and notice that the rest of you tightens without being asked. Hips, shoulders, breath. You uncross and feel the soft, untwisting travel upward. You whisper a few words during the next pretend squeeze and catch how your chest wants to help your voice, how your pulse offers to hurry without being asked. Then you fall quiet again and feel the sigh return under your ribs. This is not a science class. It is a simple rehearsal for a life that treats your heart with a little more courtesy. Some evenings, the 5 minutes will feel long. Some evenings, a visitor will step into the room just as you are ready to press the button. You will be tempted to wave them in and explain while the cuff tightens. because you are a polite person who doesn't want to seem fussy. Tonight, you practice a different kind of politeness, the kind that gives your body a fair chance. You say, "Give me 1 minute and then I'm all yours." You keep your feet where they are, your voice quiet, your breath moving like tide instead of like wind. When the numbers appear, you write them down and turn toward your visitor with your full attention. That attention is easier to give when you haven't spent it on worry. A memory taps on the window from an earlier year. You rushed a reading before a ride to the clinic, spoke across rooms while the cuff squeezed because the house was lively, then carried a single number in your pocket like a pebble you couldn't put down. You forgive that version of you and thank them for trying with what they knew. You thank this version for choosing small courtesies that turn guesswork into clarity. You did not change your heart in 1 week. You changed the way you listen to it. Kindness walks with wisdom here because courage and care share the same table. If a heavy, crushing pain grips your chest, if breath turns suddenly hard, if new weakness or strange speech arrives without warning, you don't sit and perfect your posture. You seek help. Most days won't ask for that. Most days will ask for exactly what you gave yourself tonight. Arrival, grounded feet, and quiet during the squeeze. Before the light thins, leave one small action for tomorrow's you. Take a scrap of paper and write 3 friendly words, the size your eyes like to read. Rest, feet, quiet. Tuck it under the monitor so it peeks out like a bookmark. Then rehearse the sentence you'll use if someone calls in the middle of your next measurement. "I'll call you right back in 1 minute." Say it once now so your mouth knows it when you need it. The chair will remember your back, the floor will remember your feet, and your numbers will remember they belong to a calmer room. Sunday settles into the house like a kind hush, and you find yourself tidying the table where the week's small proofs live. The folded cuff that no longer intimidates you, the notepad with neat lines, the pen that writes on the first try. You look at yesterday's numbers and remember the way the room felt when you measured them, chairs steady under you, soles meeting the floor, your voice resting while the cuff did the talking. It occurs to you that none of this changed who you are. It only changed the room you gave your heart to speak in. Tomorrow, you have a routine check-in, and for the first time in a while, you don't dread the conversation. You know what you'll bring besides your insurance card? 1 calm week of readings gathered in a gentler way. Morning comes, and the clinic smells faintly of paper and hand soap. A nurse greets you with that practice warmth that always lands like a blanket. She wraps the clinic cuff and reminds you to let your feet rest flat. You smile because you already are. When the number appears, it looks like a cousin of the ones you've been writing at home, not a stranger. The nurse asks how you measured. You tell her you sat all the way back in your chair for 5 quiet minutes, that you kept your ankles from braiding themselves, that you let silence hold the room during the squeeze. She nods in that way clinicians do when something simple is also exactly right. And the rest of the visit feels more like a team meeting than a test. On the way home, you replay scenes from the week, like little films stitched together. The morning you almost rushed, then chose to let the kettle finish its song and gave yourself 5 minutes that softened everything. The afternoon, your ankles snuck toward their old cross and you noticed before they stole the truth. The evening, you let the phone ring once and fade while the cuff spoke, and how easy it was to call back with your full voice a minute later. Recognition doesn't arrive like fireworks. It arrives like light through a clean window. You see how each small change carried its own kindness and how the 3 together turned noise into 6. There's empathy in this, too, toward all the earlier versions of you who tried to be perfect with tools you hadn't been given. You forgive the days you measured between chores, one leg tossed over the other, speaking across rooms while the cuff squeezed, then spent the afternoon carrying a number like a pebble in your shoe. You can even smile at those days now because you're in a different conversation with your body. The chair remembers your back. The floor remembers your feet. Your breath remembers that quiet is not a void, it's a bridge. Reflection slides into hope almost without effort. You don't need stricter rules or fancy devices. You need repeatable moments that feel like you. 5 minutes of arrival, 2 feet grounded, 1 small promise of silence while the cuff listens. You picture the note taped to your monitor, rest, feet, quiet, and decide to write it once more on a card you'll tuck into your wallet for the clinic visits ahead. You think of teaching this to a friend who keeps apologizing for bad numbers and imagine the relief on their face when a reading finally sounds like the person they are when the house is kind. Care and courage walk beside you, as always. If a heavy, crushing pain ever grips your chest, if breath turns suddenly hard, if new weakness or strange speech arrives without warning, you will not sit and perfect your posture. You will seek help. Most days will never demand that choice. Most days will simply ask for those 3 courtesies you now keep within reach. Action arrives as softly as setting the table. You place the cuff on the monitor open and ready, not folded into a puzzle. You slide your notebook beneath it so your hand finds the page without looking. You put a small cushion in the chair to invite your back all the way home. You rehearse a friendly sentence for the next time life knocks during the squeeze. I'll call you right back in 1 minute. It fits in your mouth easily, like something you've always known how to say. Evening drifts in and the house feels prepared rather than precious. You sit once more, not to chase a number, but to keep a promise. Back supported, soles easy on the floor. The quiet minute around the squeeze feels like a bow to a partner at the end of a song. When the reading appears, you write it down and close the notebook without drama. You've earned the right to let the page carry the weight. You stand, roll your shoulders once, and reach for the light. The porch answers with a calm that will still be there in the morning. Closing recap. Here's the simple truth we learned and practiced until it felt like second nature. Your blood pressure reading is not just a button press. It's the room you make around it. When you arrive for 5 quiet minutes, your helper muscles stop bracing and the number hears your steady self. When your feet rest flat and uncrossed, you take the twist out of the hose so the flow is true. When you keep your voice resting during the squeeze, effort doesn't masquerade as pressure. Together, these 3 courtesies rest, feet, quiet, turn jumpy snapshots into a clearer story you can share with your clinician. You didn't change your heart in a week. You changed the way you listen to it, and that's a kind of strength that lasts. If you try one thing today, make it this. Place a small note by your monitor that says, rest, feet, quiet. Then take 1 calm reading you can believe in and write it down. Thank you for spending this time with EverWell USA. Like, subscribe, and share so a neighbor can find this gentler way to measure and the steadier confidence that follows.